I'm eating for two. Have been for a long time, but not for much longer, I'm afraid. No, I'm not pregnant. I'm a male. Yet I'm responsible for my own survival, as well as the survival of the creature attached to my back. We share everything I put into my body. I wasn't born with the creature attached to me. This isn't some type of conjoined twin situation. 20 years ago, when I was 16, I went to a bonfire party in the woods. More accurately, I was dragged to the party by my sister, who was forced to drag me there by our mother, who was the one who decided whether or not she would have access to a car at any given moment. Anybody who was anybody at my high school was there. The fire was huge. When I saw it, I was kind of worried about the tree branches above catching on fire. There were 3 huge logs around the fire to sit on, along with a plethora of folding chairs scattered here and there. Everyone was drinking or smoking weed. I figured I was going to have a bad night before I arrived. Now that I was here, I was absolutely certain of it. I knew most of the people there, but no one seemed to know me. At least they were pretending they didn't. I sat alone by the fire in a chair my sister provided for me, so I wouldn't have to sit on the logs. We both knew I would be sitting all night, and I really didn't want to do that on a log. I assumed this would be the extent of my party-going experience. I was absent-mindedly staring into the flames, more or less just waiting for my sister to be ready to leave. Suddenly, for reasons beyond my understanding, Casey pulled up a chair and sat next to me. It took every bit of self-control I had to conceal my excitement. I am unusually so happy to be talking to someone, anyone. Most people just say enough to not be rude and move along. To be talking to a girl like Casey, I was downright giddy. Casey was thin and blonde with perfect teeth and smelled heavily of marijuana. She seemed to be friends with everyone at the party, but I'd never seen her hanging out with any of them at school. I guess she must just put her head down and work at school and makes time to socialise on the weekends. That's all I could think of, at the time anyway. "Hey cutie, why are you so low?" she asked me, flashing her flawless smile. I'd been a little worried that she was coming over to make fun of me or something, but the question seemed genuine. "None of my friends showed up, so I'm not really having the best time," I answered, still staring into the fire. This was a lie. I didn't have any friends. She probably knows I don't have any friends, but that would mean she has noticed me before. I doubt she has. Even if she had, only the coolest of humans would call anyone out on the lie like this. I just met her, but I was sure there wasn't a cruel bone in her body. It's not like I shut myself off from the world and never even tried to make friends. All my life other kids have kept their distance from me, like they're scared of me or something. I have no idea what it is about me that most people find so repellent, but at least I've never been bullied or anything. Which is pretty great considering I'm 5'4" and weigh 100 pounds, with my shoes and clothes on. Guess I'm just lucky. Casey frowned, leaning so close that if I extended my lips, we would have kissed and said, "Oh, sweetie, you've got a friend here now." She hugged me and then punched me in the arm. I did my best to hide how much pain I was in, but her smirk suggested she saw right through the facade. We talked for a while. She was also really into Studio Ghibli movies. Not as completely into them as I was, but it meant I had a subject I was well versed in to talk about to someone willing to listen. Socially, that's the only time I shine. She gave me a pill but wouldn't say what it was. I'd never done a drug in my life, not due to any moral objection. I just never had the opportunity. Plus, I really wanted Casey to like me, so I would have done pretty much anything she said. I definitely didn't regret it. About a half hour later, I felt amazing. I was relaxed, talking to people was easier, and I was starting to have a lot of fun for the first time in my life. Casey and I were about halfway through singing the end credits song from the Japanese version of Ponyo. We were both making up our own original Japanese words. That's when Casey's ex-boyfriend Mike came over to us. It was obvious anger had been building in him all night, and he was looking for someone to unleash it on. Well, it was obvious to everyone but me. Reading people's faces and connecting the face I was seeing to a specific emotion is something I definitely do not shine at. "Will you two shut the fuck up?" he growled, standing more than 6 feet from the ground. "You're pissing everybody off." Casey, who was not much taller than me, got up and stood toe-to-toe with the square-jawed idiot and said, "Whoa, Mike. Don't you think you're a little close to the fire with the amount of alcohol vapor cascading out of that useless tongue mouth of yours? It would be such a shame if you caught on fire." The people around who heard reacted with a loud, drawn-out, "Ooh." Mike clearly couldn't think of a comeback. He stood silent for what felt like an hour before shooting his right hand towards Casey and grabbing by his shirt. I was already on my feet, running towards Mike. I made a fist and swung it at Mike's face with as much force as my tiny frame could produce. This is not like me at all. This may have been the first fist I had ever thrown. I have no idea why I did it. I felt like one of the superheroes I admired and knew every single esoteric detail about. Someone was in trouble. and I hadn't even hesitated to do something about it. Maybe this is the new me. Of course, I knew I'd be myself again tomorrow when the drugs wore off. My fist barely reached Mike's face, but I hit him square in the jaw. His face didn't even move. He burst into hysterical laughter, and with each break coming from that ass's mouth, I became more aware of how completely fucked I was. The laughter didn't last. Mike pushed Casey away from him as she fell backwards to the ground. At least she was safe. That was the goal of my uncharacteristic act of heroism, but I'm going to have to pay for success with blood. I was more scared than I had ever been, but I stood my ground. It was dumb, but my noble cause mixed with the drug gave me courage. Courage was the second thing I was experiencing for the first time that night. Mike threw one punch and that was it. I was down, and I didn't even consider getting back up. He punched me so hard I ended up having to get reconstructive surgery done. Blood was pouring out of my nose. My sister and her friend throwing the party made Mike and his friends leave. They left willingly. I don't think even Mike's friends were super impressed with his actions that night. Not that they'd admit it. My sister helped stop the bleeding and offered to take me home. Home was the very last place I wanted to be. I was having so much fun and for some reason, I was in no pain. The rest of the night I felt like the king of that party. All the girls were hugging me and making sure I was okay. The guys were giving me drinks and high fives. Drinking was the third thing I was doing for the first time that night. It was the happiest I'd ever been, by a lot. Probably the happiest I'd ever be. Casey grabbed my arm and pulled me into the woods. I wasn't sure why, but I would have followed her anywhere that night. Thank you for standing up for me. Everyone else just watches or looks the other way when bad things happen to me. I think you're the only good guy left. I started to respond, but out of nowhere Casey kissed me, right on the lips. Fourth thing I was experiencing for the first time that night. She looked deep into my eyes and smiled, and I swear the whole forest got brighter. She went back to the party, leaving me alone in the woods with a big, dopey smile on my face. I felt like I was floating. I had no idea life would be this good for me.
You were great out there tonight, kid.
A tiny, raspy, yet squeaky voice came from the darkness. I figured it was one of the other kids messing around. Thanks, who's there? I wasn't really sure which direction the voice was coming from. I did my best to see past the trees the fire's light didn't touch, but couldn't see anyone in the darkness. I felt something bump my foot. It was black, about the size of a quarter, but spherical. It looked furry, but I wasn't about to pick it up to find out. It started rolling around. Two bright blue eyes, with yellow outlines opened and was staring at me. It didn't seem to have a mouth, but somehow, I knew this thing was the source of the mystery voice coming from the woods.
You can't take all the credit for tonight, you know,
said the tiny creature, who really reminded me of the suitable workers in Spirited Away. I know, it was the drugs. Tomorrow I'll be back to pathetic old me, but I had a blast. I'm okay with that, I lied.
What if you didn't have to go back? I can offer you a way forward,
said the ball of soot wannabe. I politely responded, no, thank you, I'm going back to the party. See you later, Sootie. I started to walk away, but stopped when I heard Sootie say,
what if you could feel like this every day?
I stopped, turned around, and with a tone of extreme skepticism asked, how?
Sootie, is that my new nickname?
The fuzzy ball asked. I shrugged my shoulders and said, I guess I have to call you something, right? And you remind me of the soot balls in this movie I love. What's your real name?
I hate my real name. Brings sickness and pain to the minds of everyone who hears it. My true name definitely doesn't suit me. Everyone who learns it tries to avoid me or get rid of me. I like Sootie much better.
Sootie erupted in excited squeaking. I was ecstatic. I truly felt I had finally come across someone, or at least something that may be able to understand me. I definitely understand that feeling. It's a pleasure to meet you, Sootie, I said, as I held my hand out and shook it up and down, pretending to shake his non-existent hand. Sootie smiled. His mouth, while it was open, was bigger than his whole body, and looked like it could stretch to be much bigger. He didn't seem to have any teeth at first, but eventually I saw them. His mouth was filled with row after row of tiny silver teeth that all came to an infinitely small point, like tiny little hypodermic needles.
Believe me, the pleasure is all mine,
Sootie said, with a hint of excitement in his voice. So, how do I make this the new me? I asked.
I am your answer. Simply pick me up and allow me to attach to your back, just below the neck, perfectly centered, and I promise you'll never be sad again,
Sootie said, in a very matter-of-fact tone. How does it work? I asked.
If I tell you that, it won't work, he replied.
I couldn't decide something like this on the spot. I had no idea what attaching this thing to my body would do to me. It was also very disconcerting that me knowing that information is somehow a deal-breaker. Plus, even at that age, I knew making decisions on drugs and alcohol was a bad idea. What if I keep you in my pocket, get to know you better, and take some time to think about it? Sootie smiled again, even wider than before, and excitedly said,
Of course. I'm very excited to see where you live.
I picked Sootie up. Phew, you are furry. I was worried you'd be sharp like a porcupine, I said, as I slipped Sootie into my pocket.
I'm glad I'm furry too. I would never want to hurt you.
Sootie was still talking, but I couldn't hear him from my pocket once I was around the noise of the party. I probably shouldn't pull him out around people anyway. Who wouldn't want one of these little furry guys as a pet? So I might take him away, and then I won't even have the option to be happy. Me and my sister drove home, and she snuck me into my room. Although there was no hiding what happened to my nose, at least Mum wouldn't smell the booze in my breath. I laid in my bed, smiling. Good night, Sootie, I said, before closing my eyes.
Good night. Sleep tight.
That's how I met Sootie.